Pleased to be joined by none other than Coach Gary Close on a cold Midwest evening. And I think that's Jess Settles in that little phone that Gary's holding up to the screen.
How about that?
You know, every year, Gary, we make fun of Jess's internet, but it's never been this bad. So everybody say hi to Jess if you're on the stream and here listening.
Got Jess here.
All-time great Jess Settles. So if you can't see Jess, at least you can try hearing him. He is here and here to give us cutting analysis. Jess, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I appreciate it. I'm down here at my folks' farm in Winfield, Iowa. It's freezing, it's snowing, and the internet's not working the best, I guess.
Well, Gary, we've heard that before, haven't we?
Yeah, that's for sure. I got to prop my arm up here so it doesn't go numb on me.
Yeah, I was going to say, Gary's going to end up being a paraplegic because of Jess Settles. Anyways.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. Yeah.
All right, so let's get down to this, Gary. I'm actually here in the Iowa City area this evening, fresh off the Cy-Hawk game, and it was quite a game. Two teams that played very fast, played to Iowa's pace throughout, and ultimately, second half, Iowa could not get enough rebounds, control Iowa State on the glass, and that was one of our biggest fears heading into this game. I thought the first half went about as well as you could have asked for. You'd hope they'd be up more than what they were. Was it like a 6-point game at halftime? But again, just couldn't control the glass enough in the second. Coach, is that a fair estimation of what happened in this one?
Yeah. There are several reasons why I got away from, but I think the big thing, in my opinion, is Iowa State's very good, and they've played a very competitive, challenging schedule. They've been in games like that. They've played Marquette. They went to Maui, and I think that experience really helped in a game like this. And they look like the more experienced, more physical team down the stretch, but they're really good. I mean, they're ranked that high for a reason. This is a really good, deep basketball team.
Jess, your thoughts on the second half? Where'd this thing get away?
Well, Iowa State obviously hit a few more threes than they hit in the first half. That made a big difference. Owen Freeman missed a couple free throws coming out of that last timeout that I just thought at the time were pretty big. It's just a missed opportunity for a major check mark on your resume as the dog days of the Big Ten continue. Iowa's got a really good team. They're going to win several games, but it's wins like tonight when you outplay Iowa State for the majority of that game that just carry your analytics the whole season. And Iowa State, if they don't give up an 18-point lead to Auburn over in Maui, they're the number one team in the country right now. So right there with them, but needed to close the deal.
Gary, how do you this was something I was thinking about as I was making the 10-minute drive over here after the long walk from Carver and frigid temps. You and I always talk about the team, this program, and their identity, obviously being run and gun. You're gonna try to outscore your opponent basically each and every night. And fans complain about Fran McCaffery's defense. And you've advocated for the fact that you only have so much time to practice so much, right? And that's the reality of any coaching job. And Fran has emphasized what he emphasizes, and that's his identity. That's not going to change. But what is it about rebounding? The Iowa's issue, this has been a multi-year issue. Why does Iowa struggle so much on the glass? Is it personnel and not having enough guys who are natural rebounders? Is it, he doesn't spend enough time on it in practice? Fans would like to know the answer to that.
Well, that's a good question. I think as far as this team goes, and just watching them, they're not physical enough. They're just when you're playing a team like Iowa State that is a really good rebounding team, you got to let them know right in the beginning of the game, hey, this is what's going to happen if you're going to come to the glass. I'm going to nail you. And if you don't do that, then they think, oh my gosh, this is just going to be free reign to the glass all night long, and they just come even harder. I think they've got to be more physical, especially early, without fouling, and just set the tone that, hey, if you're going to come in here, you're going to get nailed. And that's got to be everybody. That's not just the big guys. The guards got to check out. They got to go get the ball. I just don't think they're physical enough right now to be a good rebounding team.
Lemansky, appreciate the super chat. He says, hold off on the mutiny. Lots of games ahead. Cyclones number 3 team in the country. And let me just say kudos to the Iowa fans that showed up. The student section, we criticize the students at times because there aren't many students in the arena. It was packed as far as students tonight. Now there was a lot of people in red, and understandably so. And there were some empty seats, but the Iowa crowd was impressive, especially down the stretch, and did everything it could to lead this team to victory. Jess, would you agree with Coach's sentiment as it relates to rebounding? How do you teach that? Just being more physical. What does Fran do in practice from a practical standpoint?
Well, there's 3 or 4 different things, and Coach said number 1, it's just personal responsibility of laying a body on somebody and being very physical. Owen Freeman's a good rebounder. Dembele's strong enough. It's probably just a mindset. I think sometimes because they're a running team, guys leak out, and it's a ricochet rebounding era that we're in right now. There's so many threes being launched, and those things when you miss are just flying all over the place. So you have to have your guards rebound down and help out. And Peyton Sanford is pretty good at that as well, but tonight it was just they got bullied on the glass, and it's been a problem for them. And I think the good news is that you can probably clean that up. Back in the day, we charted rebounding literally every drill, every practice, every scrimmage. I mean, if you went and looked at the file at the end of the year, you could go to every single day of the season and see how many rebounds you had. So it was just constantly the first thing mentioned before the game, at halftime, post-game, did you win the boards? And, in the 90s, when you won the boards, you won the game. Now, that's different now with the three-point line, because if you hit 11 or 12 of those, then all the rules go out the window. But they got to get all 5 of them locked in on that, because it probably cost them the game tonight.
Iowa was extremely balanced offensively, Gary. You see all these guys in double figures. Owen with 16. Peyton Sanford had 13, although he struggled from outside, 3 of 10. Josh Dix with 14. Dembele is 4 of 4, 3 of 3 from outside. He goes to the bench. Fran makes a lineup change to start the game, which is not something we see a lot from Fran McCaffrey. I thought that paid dividends. It seemed to light a fire offensively under Lodgy. Certainly didn't hurt his confidence from outside. He'd been turning down open threes here of late. And then Brock Harding also added 10 points and 8 assists. I'm curious, that stretch, there was a stretch there. I don't know if you two caught this, but the under 12 timeout. So TJ Otzelberger, I got to look at this, where the score was at that point, but TJ called a timeout with just under 13 minutes. And Iowa had a decent lead at that point, might have been 5 or 6 points. But he called a timeout with just under 13 minutes to go in the game. When he called that timeout, I thought he's trying to really milk this next 2-minute stretch, because he's going to get 2 breaks, going to get the under 12 timeout here shortly. And I don't know if that really did disrupt the rhythm of the game, Gary, but the game was being played at Iowa's pace throughout. And it did feel like Otzelberger had a hard time getting his guys to slow down. Iowa pressed. I felt like they sped Iowa State up a little bit when they had Traore at the front end of that press. Did you notice that, or am I making too much of that calculated use of a timeout before the 12-minute break?
Yeah. I think the other thing during that stretch is Iowa got them in a penalty pretty early in that half and did not take advantage of it. I thought their shot selection, during that time wasn't very good. Where they should have kept attacking, get the ball inside, see if they can get some more free throws, because they had him in the penalty. I think they had him in the penalty with like 14 minutes to go in the half, and that's a huge advantage. And they did not end up with a huge advantage at the free throw line. So I think that was another area that they missed an opportunity to take control of the game. I think they got a little perimeter happy. And the result was, I think Freeman had probably 7-8 shots for the game. He didn't miss very many. He needs 10, 12, 14 shots every game, in my opinion, because he's that good in there.
Iowa shoots 39% from three. They are 13 of 15 from the foul line. Unfortunately, those two misses came from Owen Freeman late when they needed them. But shot just 32% from the field in the second half. Jess, what did Iowa State do differently in the second half? That obviously they're known, that's a defensive-minded staff.
I'm not sure they did a ton more other than maybe get up into the guard some. Iowa in the first half was just awesome, right? I mean, even on the opening play, Iowa State always doubles the post, and it's hard to deal with that. And Freeman kind of got pushed out, then he skipped it over to Peyton Sanford, and he made a really tough kind of fading three. And then Iowa was able to, after that, get them spread out. But Dembele was hitting threes. Dix was hitting threes. They played about the perfect first half. And then in the second half, Iowa State starts shooting threes, and they got a little more confident defensively, created a little more havoc. I'm not sure Iowa could play any better than they did in the first half. But, you know, that Lipsy is just a pest. And he seems like he gets his fingernail or, a hand on almost every pass and just disrupted things. And Iowa State is really, really battle tested over the last 3 years. They have a ton of veterans. They've won championships, and it was right there for the taking for both teams. And I just think the experience paid off, and they were able to steal it. But it's a tough loss. It was just a golden opportunity on a night when they played extremely well. But tip your hat to the Cyclones in the last 5 minutes.
Gary's 18 offensive rebounds. How high on the spectrum is that when you go back as a coach and examine the stat sheet?
Oh, that's way too high. I think if you look at the number of shots they missed, then you total that percentage. That's going to be a real high percentage. So that's, I don't know if you have the stats on what that resulted in terms of second chance points and drawing fouls and things like that. But if there's one stat in the game that determined it, it's that. There's no question about it.
Doubled up Iowa in second chance points, 20-10. It could have been worse, honestly, with the 18-8 margin. We've got a couple people here who want a word before we get to our callers. We do want to thank Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm. He's been with us throughout basketball season again. Brad, you can call him at 515-256-6480 for a quote on homeowners insurance, life insurance, auto insurance, whatever the case may be. Or you can visit him in person at 4229 Fleur Drive in Des Moines, online at bradvanmeter.com. It's always good to have good insurance, Gary. I was driving down I-80 earlier today, and I haven't had an issue like this in probably 6 or 7 years. And all of a sudden, I find myself stranded on the side of the road. And it's always good to have good roadside coverage and whatever.
Did you not put enough gas in the car, or what happened?
You know what? I wonder if it's bad gas, honestly. I had to get a tow and got a different car and got it to Iowa City. So, but
right.
Yeah, got to make sure you get good insurance coverage, including roadside. Let's go to our caller. We got Tony here who has been waiting patiently. Tony, welcome to the stream.
Hey, Coach Close, did Corey give you a raise this year? I mean, you're doing double duty here because you have you showing up and you're making sure Jess is right there on the stream too. I mean, you should get double pay, right?
They double my salary from 0 to 0.
So Tony, here's what happens when Gary sends me the invoice. I forward it to Jess because Gary's pulling Jess's weight.
That explains it.
Well, and he's so good at paying his internet bills. We obviously see.
Oh yeah, yeah. Clearly, he's good at paying his.
How they've had 2 tough losses now in games they should have won that would have been quality wins. What how do you rebound from stuff like this? Both Jess and Coach Close, like what do you do as a coach to keep the players involved, and what do you do as a player? Do you hold these closed door meetings, or is it that type of time yet to panic, or what do you do from both the coaches and players' perspective?
That's a really good question. I think you got to be honest with them. You know that they're close. They're as Jess said, they're very close to winning that game against one of the top teams in the country. So where did we lose it, and what do we need to improve? We got a long season ahead of us in terms of the Big Ten in front, and I think that's what you got to approach it as. Hey, we've got to get better. Here are the areas that we're not getting things done to beat good teams, and then it's up to the players to keep improving. I like their team. I think they got a chance to have a really good team, and I really think the experience, the tough schedule that Iowa State's played so far, really helped in this situation where you're going down the last 2 or 3 minutes in a tie game, and they made the plays and Iowa didn't. So they've got to get that experience quickly because the Big Ten season is not too far off. They're continuing.
Gary, is it?
What would you add to that, Jess?
Two different perspectives. One, as a player, you're just dog sick right now. I mean, you feel that you're just sick. You walk out of that arena, that cold weather hits your lungs, and you just knew. I mean, those guys know how important it is. Iowa State could be the number 1 team in the country in a couple weeks. Just how that will carry you all year, and you're constantly replaying the free throws missed. Peyton Sandford on a corner 3. Brock Harding with the foul when he tried to go for it at the free throw line. I think there were 3 or 4 seconds left in the shot clock. So there's that misery that everyone listening, I don't care what level it is, it's tough to handle, especially in a big game like that. And then from a coach's standpoint, you just trust your coaches to try to figure it out without overthinking it, right? Like Coach said, I mean, what are the 3 things that you could do to win those type of games? And then the beauty of our sport, and Gary and I spent a lot of time together, it's just there's another game on Sunday. And you just, you feel poisoned tomorrow, and then you come out and you hit the warm-ups and the adrenaline kicks, and you just move on. And you play a ton of games. It's one of the reasons I can't imagine a football team losing 3 or 4 in a row and have to wait week after week after week just to play once in a week's time. So that's all you can really do. It's a bitter loss, man. I tell you, I can feel their pain. It's just those are tough losses.
Gary, let me ask you this. This is a different type of a coaching question and trying to kind of project. We talk about the rebounding issues being a pattern, not only just this year, but in years past. What hope do fans have of those rebounding issues? I know you said you can improve on the glass, and I have no doubt that you can improve, but what's the upward motion? Like what's the ceiling on how much you can improve, given how badly I mean, this isn't the only game they got beat on the glass. They're consistently getting beat on the glass. They went down to Kansas City, got beat soundly on the glass against Utah State. What's the upward movement Iowa can experience in season?
Well, I think it could be significant because I think they've got a ways to go. I think they're a mediocre rebounding team now, but it's all intertwined. It's got to do with your defense. It's got to do with your transition defense. It's got to do with your shot selection. All those things kind of run into one another. And for example, if you're taking a bad shot or you're turning the ball over and they're flying down a court, that's an easier chance to rebound a miss. In an open court and a fast kind of pace game, it's easier to get an offense rebound in that situation. So some of it's technique, some of it's improving their half court defense, giving up less penetration, less easy shots, and quite frankly, it's work. They've just got to get better. They see the numbers, and if those numbers don't get better, and they're going to face some real good rebounding teams in the Big Ten, then they're going to be kicking themselves again. So hopefully, the type of character of players they've got, they'll see that and they'll continue to improve. So it can get better, but it's a lot of things that got to go into it to contribute to improving the numbers.
Tony, anything else from you?
Yeah, Jess, I asked Coach Close the last show or 2 shows ago what it was like as a coach during finals week. What's it like as a player during finals week? Because now you getting close to enter that and stuff like that.
Our coaches, TD and Rich Walker, Gary Coles and stuff, it was academics were very serious, man. They didn't mess around with that. And so that week was weird because it was just, you didn't practice much. If I remember right, for us, it was just get in here when you can. I think our 2 or 3 of our practices, you have half the team there. So it's a weird week. I don't know, Coach, what it's like. I mean, it's been a long time for me. I don't know if they've changed it, but it was just it was all about the classes and the tests and trying to keep everybody doing the best they could in the classroom. And you guys were phenomenal at that. No one felt any pressure to be at the practice if they had to study or had a test that week.
That's well put.
And then I'll just have one last one and close out on this. What do you do anything to maybe lighten the mood and let off steam after 2 close losses like that? Or is just the players move on and we go like, do you have like, you play wiffle ball one practice for 10 minutes just to lighten the mood? Or what do you do? The players just accept the responsibility and move? I mean, I know it sounds funny, but like, is there anything like that you do, or do you just bury it and move on, or do you not watch the film, or what?
Well, I think this is a really good teaching film because it's a really good team. I mean, they may not play another team as good as that all year. They got a chance to go to the Final Four. They're that good. And so here's how close you came to beating them. Now, obviously, it was on their court, but even in a neutral situation. But here are the things that we did not do to win the game. Maybe there's some tape of bad rebounding situation, bad shot selection, bad deep 3-point coverage. I thought they got away with a lot of bad coverage in the first half because they missed them. And so you think your 3-point defense is good because their percentage is low. And then you go back and look at the tape and they're all wide open shots that they're just missing. And then the second half, they didn't. And so we got to get better at that. So, the season's still fairly early. And they've got a lot of room for improvement, which is encouraging because they came very close to beating a really good team that's beaten a lot of really good teams already.
Less stuff at the rim in the first half, though, right, Gary? Less at the
What's
rim.
that?
Iowa allowed less at the rim, less dunks, less layups at the rim in the first half.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Jess?
Hey, let me jump in on that. A couple things on the tape. It's crazy as a player. When I played and then I also coached, I remember a couple times Coach Close calling me in and he would say, "You're not rebounding at the level we've got to have you rebounding at." And that's we live with confrontation when we're players and we get coached and the first instinct is like, "What are you talking about? I'm leading the team in rebounding." That's what you want to say to him. You're like, okay. So then what's he do? He puts the tape on. Well, then there's four or five times in the game that you would bet the farm that you went to the rim to rebound and he shows you the tape and you didn't do it. And it's the craziest thing about being a young player and just you could swear you're doing it right. And then the coaches show you the film and you're like, I mean, if I just did that 3 more times a game, I could get another rebound and a half and we would have won the game. As far as the wiffle ball stuff goes, with it's not the time for that. But the last time I played wiffle ball was the summer of '94 in Carver before the European trip, and I on 3 pitches struck Gary Close out.
Hey, Jess, when's the next time you're going
to? That is such a lie. I took you deep.
Strike 3. Get out of here.
I think.
When's the next time you're going to be on TV, Jess? And then I'll leave it then.
I don't think I think Tony's gone. Jess, when are you going to be back on the TV? When are you going to do Sunday's game?
I will be there on Sunday's game if I'm not too dizzy from Coach Close moving this camera around the whole time.
Okay.
My elbow's sore from holding the thing up.
All right. So Jess, I hope you know that to end this show tonight, Jess, I'm going to ask you for a scouting report on New Orleans. So you better get ready on that one. Don't laugh. DC Hawkeye, appreciate the super chat. Nice show, Coach Corey, Jess. So we appreciate the super chat there. And then Gary Faraway. Do you know that name, Gary? He says,
Gary Faraway.
He says you're his old arch enemy and he'll defeat you. does that mean?
I don't remember him. No.
My goodness, very aggressive.
I think it's a little pun on my last name.
Very far away. I gotcha. All right. Hilarious. Okay.
That's pretty creative.
That is creative, man. That took some thought. Ask-a-Bum. Drew proved he can go one-on-one with anyone on D. Let's talk about that because we really haven't discussed the lineup change. Obviously, Lodgie's been struggling, and he got his shot back today, which was good to see. He's got to give him more on the glass, Jess. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but he's got it with his size. He's got to be able to bang more down low. But you guys talk a little bit about that lineup change. Were you surprised by that, and what was the effect going small? Did that hamper them on the glass?
Possibly, but I think they were concerned with Iowa State's quickness and athleticism, and I think they went a little smaller, a little quicker, and I think it was a good move. They got off to a great start and really controlled the game until late. So I thought it was a good move.
Jess, your thoughts on Drew?
I agree. It was really fun to watch that first half. They were just flying all over the place, moving the ball side to side. They were quicker. I mean, Iowa State's defense is elite, and Iowa just looked incredible against it for so much of that game. And I think the smaller lineup was the key. And their veterans played heavy minutes. You got Peyton played 40 minutes. Owen played 26. Dix played 36. Thelwell played 36. Harding 31. And then they only played 3 other guys. Price Sanford only played 4 minutes in this game, Coach.
Yeah, I know. I was a little surprised by that.
Wonder if he's
coming back from injury, but they were. I think he was just. Even as a coach, I just think the importance of that game, and they were just all in on this game with the different lineup. I thought it was a great move. It was awesome for a while there.
And I think he went with a hot hand. They were playing so well, and I don't think he wanted to change it up much.
Yeah. If anything, they needed more physicality and more rebounding. Maybe not more shots, right? Is that fair to say? So going with Seydu and Lodgie and Owen, obviously. So let's go to our next. We got Doug here who wants to be a part of things. Doug, welcome.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We got you.
Hello? You got me? Again, on Bluetooth. I'm on Highway 30.
Where's your video? We shouldn't let him on anymore if he doesn't have his face.
I'm driving.
He's driving.
I'm literally driving.
Pull over.
My dad might tell me to here in a second.
We got to screen these calls better, Corey.
All right.
My question, actually, I had a question for Jess. Jess, I was the guy that met you at that gas station in northern Missouri after the Utah State game. You remember that? It's only 2 weeks ago.
Hey, Jess meets a lot of people at gas stations. You're gonna have to remind him.
No, I remember. How's it going, man?
Yeah. Well, it was a pleasure meeting you, Jess, and talking to you. Like now, we're just trying to get home. But I said some things about the fan base and in the live chat. I'm not trying to make it personal for anyone in the live chat about how good a fan or not they are. But when that Cyclone Power chant was very loud at the end of that game, and they're mocking us, calling, "Oh, this is Hilton East." I take that personal a little bit, And I'm not trying to. Again, I'm not accusing any fan, and I don't support Fran. I support the Hawkeyes. So if you want a new coach, that's what you want. I think this is Fran's last year anyway, but I'm just trying to support my team. Like I told, I wasn't sure who was being meaner to me, people in your live chat or the actual Cyclone fans next to me calling Hawkeyes alcoholic. I don't know, but they.
Doug, Carver was fun tonight, though. Carver was fun. I mean, that's what it should be.
It was.
That's what it should be, and that's what's so maddening about it. Because the environment they had tonight, Gary, it felt like it was a reminder of what Carver can be like when it's hopping and when there's students there. It was Doug. The student section was full.
Yeah, we noticed that. They did a very good job, and a lot of Hawkeye fans did. I just didn't like that there was 5,000 Cyclone fans there. Yeah. But they put their money up, and this is what I want to say to people that want Fran out. you have to put the money there. A coach has to know that he has fan support and won't draw 7,500 a game. Like I said, I do think it might be France last year. If I have several guys I've told you I like as candidates. I was going to ask you guys, Close and Jess, about Ryan Bowen and what he's doing with the Nuggets, and would he ever consider being a college coach? I'll leave it there, okay?
Thanks, Doug. Good
Jess,
question.
what do you think?
Yeah, I think it could happen. He's a great friend of both of ours, Ryan Bowen, and it was an elite defensive player. When he played in the NBA, he had to guard Jordan and Kobe and Grant Hill, which is hard to even process. So you just think of not only his individual greatness as a defensive player, but all the years he's been in the league now as a coach. And I could see him doing that. I think before he went to the Nuggets, I think at one time he was, he'd mentioned Western Illinois. He didn't mention the Missouri Valley. So I think that's somewhere in the back of his mind. I don't know if that has changed. It's fun. It's fun having him out in Denver. I call some games out in the Mountain West, and it's such an easy flight to get to Denver. And every once in a while, I'll land and there'll be a Nuggets game, and it's so fun to have him because you can text him and he'll hit you up with a ticket right away, and you buzz over there and maybe go to a half or something, then head on your way up to Colorado State or Wyoming or those schools. So yeah, I think that he would be a great assistant to any major team. And what do you think, Coach?
Yeah, it's a good question. He does a great job with Denver. I think he really enjoys what he's doing. But I know he's got a lot of strong feelings about Iowa as well. So I don't think they'd have a problem attracting candidates if and when the position opens up.
Can I ask you guys, because this is something that I really, Jess, you obviously familiar with a lot of different conferences, a lot of different programs, and Gary, you've climbed the coaching ladder in your life. So I'm curious, like, where Matt Gatens is at right now. We're assuming, and we're just speculating, obviously, if Fran ends up moving on after this season. Is Matt Gatens, does he have enough assistant experience to where he would even be a legitimate candidate?
I think it's a possibility. I wouldn't say no. I think it kind of depends how everything ends. Usually, if someone is not brought back, the entire staff's not brought back. I can attest to that. So that would be a possible detriment to him. But he's a bright, young, talented coach. He's got a bright future in this profession. I don't know if it'll be here or maybe down the road, but if he's got it, he'll land somewhere because he's very, very good.
And the other thing about that, Gary, is, if Fran walks away, you're going to have probably, without question, Sherm is not going to come back, whoever the next person on the staff is. And then you've got a couple of young guys, not just Matt. You got Courtney Eldridge, who I'm guessing, again, another guy who probably didn't have enough experience to be a candidate. But hey, I mentioned Chris Collins to you. You don't think Chris would ever consider the job, but I would be going hard after Chris Collins. Why are you making?
You're getting those vibes. Like I have no vibe that Fran McCaffrey's not going to be here for a long time. I mean, you getting those vibes?
I'm just drawing the conclusion based upon the lack of fan attention, the lack of attendance at games, the fact that all his boys are gone. Merritt's got one more year of grad school left, and then she'll be gone. I just maybe not, but I would not be surprised if there's a little bit of pressure from the administration, given the fact that this is the one program of the big three that is not selling seats. Right, Jess? I mean, I don't know that the attendance has been this bad. And I'm sure it's down everywhere, but not to this extent.
Yeah. I don't see that happening. I mean, he doesn't golf. He doesn't mow the yard. He does nothing but basketball. What do you get? $400,000 a month. I mean, I don't know about that. I do wish that they would, schedule more ranked, high-profile teams at home, I think that would solve half your problems. And when I was a volunteer assistant at Southeastern, the junior college down in Burlington under Terry Carroll. And if you live in Southeast Iowa, you know about the War on 34 where they play against Indian Hills. And I think mostly because the conference was small, in the tournament they had to play 3 games in a row. They played at one place. You remember this, Coach? And they played the other one, and it usually went to the 3rd game final. I've always thought it was curious. I thought it'd be fun if the Iowa State-Iowa game was a 3 games in a row right now, one at each place, and then play maybe in Des Moines for the final or something. I don't know. I think as an administration, you got to get more creative and as far as Carver-Hawkeye and this and that, but who knows? I'm just rambling. I don't know much.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I just think I'm the reason I brought the subject. I guess Doug brought the subject up is I just wonder if there's any sign of a little bit of pressure. Does Fran have reason to deal with that, or does he just say, you know what, I don't need this. I'm going to move on and be closer to my kids in Indianapolis? I don't know. I'm just totally speculating on that. There is somebody in the chat here that wants to tell Jess that you need to get George Kittle on the cell phone and then hold that up. That way we can complete the circle of people
He's playing tonight.
Holding phones up. Is he playing right now, Jess? Or the Niners playing tonight?
We had him scheduled, and then they found out yesterday they had a game, so we cut him off.
Yeah. Appreciate the super chat here from Filet Fish. Iowa should go for Hoiberg and troll Iowa State. How's Nebraska doing right now, Gary? I haven't really been keeping up with the Huskers.
They got waxed the other night by Michigan State. The Michigan State's coming on strong the last few games. They played great. I really haven't seen them play. I haven't seen much of the Big Ten play, to tell you the truth. But that'll change here with the league starting up here in another few weeks again.
And Bob says that Fran McCaffrey was quoted post-game as saying that part of the reason they got out-rebounded was because they played smaller. And Rick adds to that. He says, Coach, do you think Fran just thought, well, we're going to get out-rebounded, so we'll go small? I don't think that was the logic there, but maybe your thoughts on those comments from Fran post-game.
I'm sure that it didn't help. I don't think there's any question. It's not like Iowa State is huge. They're quick. They're aggressive. They might have a little more size, but I don't think it was overwhelmingly more. I just think they got outworked on the boards. Not a lot, but enough that the numbers skewed their way, and it was enough to win the game. So, but I don't think there's any question if you're a little smaller, it's going to affect you some. But Jess Settles was a phenomenal rebound, and he was maybe 6'5". So come on.
So speaking of Jess Settles, Steve brings up, so the Iowa women lost the other day out in Brooklyn with 30 turnovers. Steve says that in '98, Jess Settles had 31 turnovers and beat Kansas at Kansas. I'm sorry, 1998 team with Jess Settles had 31. That's not true. Is that legitimate? You guys had 31 turnovers, Gary, at Kansas and won? That's not right.
We might have. I don't know.
Right. Come on. 31 turnovers at Kansas?
Yeah, that's right.
We must have made a lot of shots.
Yeah. Kent McCausland, Ryan Luersman made some plays. And remember, Joey Range had a spectacular little run in the second half. But yeah, I think they had like an 85 game home win series.
Oh yeah, it was big.
And we turned the ball over. I thought it was 32 times because I don't think it's ever happened in the history of Fog Allen where you have 25 plus turnovers and win there. I bet it never has. But we did the hokey pokey in the locker room after that game, and then the next day when we got back, Coach, I think Hayden Fry came over and did the hokey pokey with us again for fun.
He showed us how to do it the right way.
Oh yeah.
So I am looking at this box score here, Gary. Do you want to guess who the leading scorer on that team was in that game?
Ken McCausland.
You're right. Who was the second leading scorer?
Joey Range.
No.
Ryan
No. Jacob.
Jake.
There you go. Jake Jakes.
Yeah, Jake Jakes.
Marshall Town College.
Dean had 13 points, and Jess, you only had 2. What were you doing? You had 2 points, 4 turnovers that day, Jess.
I mean, it was an absolute nightmare. I have no idea why I was in the game. It was a disgraceful performance, but my form with the hokey pokey was made up for it.
31 turnovers, but you guys won, and you were 9 of 17 from outside, so that helps.
31 turnovers. Whoa, that is a lot.
Yeah, have you ever done that before, Gary? That's got to be a record for you, right?
I don't think so. Maybe some of my youth league teams and my kids.
So our user here says that we need Jess Settles to come back for an 8th year, and maybe Dr. Tom can come back.
That would be his 9th year.
Oh, his 9th year.
Coach Davis just had a birthday the other day.
What's it? How old is Coach?
December 3rd.
Do we know how old?
How old? Yeah, like around 85, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, he's still got some good years in front of him. I was just confirming this. 86, Gary.
86.
86. How about that? Okay, let's go to, I think, what's going to be our last caller of the night. We've got Corey here. Different Corey. Corey, welcome.
Corey, how you doing? I'm very grumpy tonight.
Okay. All right.
I watched the last minute and a half of that game. I replayed it, and you know what? Hawks are down by 2, and Josh Dix abandons his man on defense out on the perimeter, drops down to basically guard no one, and then gets kind of pinned down under their defender, the post player, and can't get back out, and they drain the 3. Then I look at another scenario where Peyton Sanford stands there about free throw line extended, stands there as his guy cuts behind him to the basket, and he doesn't move, and they throw it into him, and he hits a layup. And these both happened in the last minute and a half of the game. Those are inexcusable. This game had nothing to do with, you can say live by the 3, die by the 3. Had nothing to do with that. Okay, on top of that, I watched Owen Freeman just stand there after the shot went up and just stand there for like 3 seconds straight as he got boxed out. And he's the defender, and it's just there's fundamental flaws with the way that game ended, and I encourage everyone to watch that game, and that tape is going to be utterly painful for these players to watch, just like Jess Settles mentioned about boxing out, and you thought you were boxing out the whole game. Well, let me tell you, if you'd have boxed out once, and if you'd have just played solid defense and not abandoned your man, you might have won that game. And I'll say this, hats off to the Hawks for putting themselves in a position where they're, within a score with a minute and a half left. But there were key errors made at the end of that game that were not skill-based. They were effort-based and fundamentals that were lacking. And that tape is going to be utterly sobering for this team, because they could have really pulled off a big upset tonight, and they really fell off. And the other thing I'm going to say, and then I'll leave it to you guys to discuss, but I was puzzled when I saw Owen Freeman was totally gassed, and Fran pulls Harding and Laji Dembele, sends them to put them into the game. And it just so happened that Freeman was shooting free throws, so he couldn't, Dembele couldn't come in for him. Well, then all of a sudden Dembele never goes in. And I think we called timeout. Maybe he felt like Freeman got his win back. But Dembele was the only stopping force on the defensive side, in my opinion. He should have been in there. They should have had Freeman and Dembele in there. Dembele was the physical force that could hold those guys back, and they could build somewhat of a wall Otherwise, it was like Swiss cheese. So I'm done with my temper tantrum. But man, what a fun game to watch until the last minute and a half. That was just deflating to watch that crumble. And I'll just say this lastly, Laji Dembele, and I want Jess Settles and Coach Close to comment on this, but I see Laje Dembele disregard his 3-point shot. I think he has the potential to be the Ed Horton for this team, to have some beef down there and to be able to keep some guys out of that lane and be a physical force. I think he's Ed Horton 2.0. His body allows for it, and they need that down there. They don't have that role player, and they don't have Jess Settles. You know, when the Hawkeyes lost Horton, well, then there was the Chris Streets, the Jess Settles, and those tough guys. And I'm going to be at a loss for the James Winters was another one that was a physical force. They need that. They don't have that. And Dembele's got to be that guy. And he wasn't in at the end of that game. Fran was ready to put him in, and then he must have pulled him back. And
But Corey, real quick, Lodgy has to average more than 4 rebounds a game. So you talk about how big and physical he is. He got 3 rebounds tonight. He's got to rebound better. Like, if there's one guy on the team that I'm looking at, I know they got to, Gary, you said last time out, they got to rebound by committee. But if there's one person I'm looking at and saying, you have to rebound better, it's Lodgy Dembele, is it not? I mean, Peyton, I don't know how many you can expect out of Peyton Sanford. He gives you, what did he give you tonight? He gives you 5. Owen gives you 5. Yeah, you'd like to get closer to 10 from Owen. Thelwell gives you 6. Lodgy's got to give you more than, Lodgy gave you 4 tonight. He's averaging 4 on the season. Am I wrong on that, Gary?
Well, I mean, I can see both sides of it. I think he's been inconsistent as far as that go, but in terms of potential, I can see where you could see that is a possibility. And he's got to step up. And potential is one thing, production is another. And but I see the chances of that happening. I think Fran thinks the same thing. It's just hopefully that'll happen. It hasn't happened on a consistent basis, but I thought that was maybe his best game of the year. So hopefully it's a start in the right direction.
Yeah,
Jess,
because go ahead, Corey. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, Jess, do you agree with that on Lodgy?
You know what? I'm looking here. I don't know if these are. I only have him down for playing 14 minutes. Is that what you're showing?
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
14 tonight. Yeah, so 4 is not terrible in 14.
Yeah, so 4 rebounds and 14, not terrible, but it's I think you said it right. It's deflating to watch that crumble. This was such a mess. This is probably the number 1 team in the country. I mean, this is a Final Four team, and that last minute and a half, it kind of felt like freelance defense, where they just sort of forgot the rules and what it's going to take to grind out that win. And I do think the rebounding is, you can correct that. And yet what's weird as a coach sometimes is you can't make certain people be something they're not. And some of the guys just are not rebounding at the level they've got to rebound at every single play. And I think they will break down the tape, and it will show a ton, and it's really going to hurt. I don't know, Coach. They had I don't know when this kind of the hit and get rebounding philosophies came into play, where you kind of hit a guy in the chest with your hand quick, and then you explode to the rim and grab it. And where we were more, you got to sit on their thigh till death, and you just, no matter what, you don't let them launch on you. So what are your thoughts on? I don't know how you guys taught it at Wisconsin, but I think the hit and get thing for a lot of guys is just an excuse not to rebound.
No doubt. You got to use your lower body and get into people. And and as I mentioned to earlier, you got to do it right from the get-go. If you don't, then they're just going to think, oh man, this is going to be a cakewalk. Excuse me. Nobody's going to block me out. I'm flying in there. you nail them one time, they go, oh, well, maybe that's something I don't want to do tonight for 40 minutes. So the physicality is a problem. And I think Iowa State was obviously the more physical team. But that's their reputation. They've been like that for a while now.
Yes.
And it's one of the reasons why they're as successful as they are.
And that's part of my frustration with this series, because this series every year, I don't know, at least the last 3 years has been a tale of the glass. Now, I mean, last year they got ran in Ames, but they've gotten killed on the glass against this team, against Illinois, against those physical teams that are on their schedule every year.
Yeah, and I think of, I just, whenever you want to discuss rebounding, I just laugh because it makes me think of AC Earl, and he would just stand down there and he'd get 4 or 5 rebounds, consecutive rebounds, and it was like an insurance policy. You didn't have the pressure to make the bucket because you knew you were getting the rebounds. And the same if you had James Winters, Jess Settles, Chris Street, it was an insurance policy. It was just a beautiful thing. And there's so much pressure on this team to make shots because they know they're not going to get any of the rebounds. I think that would take pressure off of them too. If they saw that they're going to get some rebounds, it's just, and so anyway, it was just, I encourage everyone to watch the last minute and a half of that game. Just replay it, rewind it, replay it, and play by play on the Hawkeyes' defensive efforts and on their rebounding efforts the last minute and a half of that game. And that's where the game was won and lost, right there, because it was a 2-point ball game. Now, I'll also say this. They got robbed on 2 major calls. That over and back call that was failed, but that was earlier in the game. And then later in the game when Iowa State knocks it out and they give it to Iowa State. And that was still 5 minutes left. But when you get down to crunch time, it was a 2-point ball game, anybody's game, minute and a half left. And we abandon our guy and sit down in the lane while he drills a 3. We don't even attempt to box out. And lastly, we stand in the lane and watch our guy cut back door right behind us, and we don't move. Those 3 plays killed the Hawkeyes tonight. And you know what? They earned that loss in that last minute and a half, and it's going to hurt them when they see the tape. But they also need to know they could have had that game. They had it. And that would have blown the roof off of Carver and probably boosted attendance. And the last thing I'm going to say is I think we do have to cut some slack to the men's basketball game because they are directly competing against one of the best wrestling programs in the country and one of the strongest followings of any women's game in basketball in the country. And there is an unlimited population in Iowa. So you do have two strong forces pulling your fans in other directions in the wintertime. And so, it could be part of the Caitlin Clark effect that's impacting this men's attendance. And I think it would be a bit remiss to not acknowledge that basketball fans that loved Iowa men's basketball could easily transition to loving Iowa women's basketball, especially with that level of success, because Iowa fans are hungry for championship level performance, and they got it in the women. And I think you saw a shift because of that. And so I don't think it's a strike against Fran. I feel bad for Fran. I think he's doing a great job. I'm a little bit upset with them in that last minute and a half and I think Fran will show them the tape because they had that game and they were in a position to win it. And so that said, I am concerned. I need to see Ed Horton 2.0 out of Laji Dembele. I need him to be physical like Ed Horton was, like Jess Settles, James Winters, Chris Street. and it's an attitude more than it is a physique. But a little bit of Traore as well can get in there. He's got the body of a James Winters, and so, but it's an attitude that I think is a little bit lacking. And you know what, a loss like this might put the chip on the shoulder and get that extra effort on the rebounding end, and keeping guys out of the paint, and don't let them muscle you down low like that. And Dembele, I think if you watch the tape, you'll see that Dembele, he doesn't get muscled. Now on the offensive end, he's not as aggressive as he should be. He'll take that fade away. But my point is, there's hope for this team, and there's logical reasons why there's not a packed house every night. And I think that Fran is a good coach, and I think that we can all feel good about that. But at the same time, we'll rewatch that last minute and a half. And any Hawkeye players that happen to see this, you guys had it. You let it go in the last minute and a half. You got you've got the ability. Gotta tighten it up at the end there, guys, and go Hawks.
Thanks, Corey. Appreciate it. Appreciate the call. I don't know if I cut him off there at the end, but if I did, so be it. Gary, I know he said a lot there, but you agree with everything our caller just said?
Yeah, it's a good point. A lot of times when you're in a game like that, and you look at those last few possessions, and they just kill you, and rightfully so. I think it deteriorated as the half went on. I don't, as I mentioned earlier, I think they gave up a lot of open shots in the first half that they didn't make. And you think you're playing pretty good defense looking at the numbers, and then you go back and look at the table. Oh my goodness. I mean, they just missed some wide open shots that they didn't miss in the second half. And then of course the rebounding. So, but then I think you got to keep in mind that is a really good basketball team that's played a brutal schedule. Like Jess says, they got a chance to go a long way. So hopefully they can see how close they are and figure out where they're falling short and try to shore those things up, because I think they've got some pieces that can make for a solid team.
Is this a tournament team right now, Jess? Last thing I'll ask you.
Man, I said after the Utah State game on the air, I thought that they would be, for this reason. You've got Iowa State at home, right? So you got a chance to win that game, and then I think there's 5 or 6 top 25 teams in the league right now, which is great. So there are some awesome opportunities ahead, and the league has some really great wins collectively. And so that's going to hold for most of the year. It's just that the way it is, everything is so bizarre in college basketball right now. And the majority of teams, maybe not the majority, but a lot of teams are trying to manipulate their schedules just based upon all these rankings and, trying to blow teams out, and you're strategizing who you play. It used to be that we played a preseason to get ready for conference play, and the preseason you would stack it if you could, because you just wanted to get better for conference play, and you knew if you went 500 in conference play, you're in the NCAA tournament. Like, we didn't even think about that. So most teams played better competition. Now it's the non-conference, where the computers count every single game basically the same. And when you get to the last 2-3 weeks of the season, when the committee and the guys who don't even watch the game and all the gurus, if they see Iowa is 500 in the league, but they've got to win against the number 3 country and the team in the country in Iowa State, it just really matters. So just a missed opportunity, a golden opportunity slipped out of their hands in the last couple of minutes. Tip your hat to Iowa State, but that one almost guarantees you a tournament as a fan this early in the season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is what a top 5, top 10 team in the country does on the road. They may not play their best. We haven't talked about Keyshawn Gilbert. He didn't play his best game tonight. Give Iowa credit, kind of got him sideways offensively in that first half, but they grinded it out on the glass and defensively and found a way to win. And right now, I think Iowa, Gary, might be a little above average in the conference, but I don't think a whole lot better than that. And, they battled at home, but they've got to close out games better. And they closed that game out against Wazoo and Moline, so they can do it. But it's 2 straight games now. Price had a one shot that would have won that game on Saturday against Michigan. And then, you had a double-digit lead at home against the number 3 team in the country. And they'll get a bit of a break here. They'll get New Orleans, and then they'll have some time to kind of regroup before they really have one more chance at a good non-conference win. And I don't know what Utah – I mean, Gary, I don't know if you want to weigh in on – and they're obviously – they've made a conference move as well. They've got losses to St. Mary's and Mississippi State, I believe, but they haven't beat anybody. But it's a Power 4 opportunity. You better win that one on a neutral court here in a little over a week. Is that a fair estimate?
Well, you need wins, regardless. You just got to keep piling them up because you're going to get into the league, and then they get a lot more difficult. I think the league is so even right now. I think there are like 10 teams that could win the Big Ten title, maybe more. And you never would have said that in the past. I think it's going to be a wild Big Ten race. So you need every win you can get. There's no doubt about it because there's going to be a lot of teams knocking a lot of teams off when you get into league play.
And Nicole Brewer here in the chat says, hey, Jess, love you as an analyst. Remember the 1999 farewell tour with the seniors. So I don't know if Nicole Brewer this is someone that knows Jess or what, but Nicole.
One of his many fans.
One of his many fans.
I appreciate it, Cole. The senior tour back in the day was so fun to go into the small towns around Iowa and play and sign autographs and meet the people. Those were great times. I still have some of those T-shirts in the attic somewhere.
Well,
maybe you should crack one of those out one of these days.
I could. Maybe I'll do that.
All right.
Awesome. It's like the old KRNA posters, right? They're just so awesome to see them once in a while hanging out places.
We'll end on this question, Gary. This is sort of a cliche, sort of maybe a juvenile question to some extent, but he says, is Iowa good? Is Iowa State overrated? Or was this just one of those good old-fashioned rivalry games? I'd say all of the above. I think Iowa's better, like I said, probably above average. Iowa State, maybe they are. I mean, Jess said they may be the best team in the country. Maybe they are that good, and Iowa was just a lot better tonight in some regards than they have been. But it's also, you're going to get, most of the time, you're going to get a really competitive game in this series.
Yeah, it's a great game. It's one of the big games of the year. I don't think Iowa State's overrated. And you look at who they've played and where they've played them. I think they've got a chance to be really, really good. And I think Iowa's got a chance to be good too. They're not there yet. And hopefully they can shore up what they're lacking and continue to improve and get ready for I think it'll be a wild Big Ten race.
Hey Gary, is your arm okay?
No, it's throbbing.
Why are you doing that to your old coach, Jess?
I don't know. God.
I mean, as many games as I won for him, it's the least you can do.
Yeah.
My word.
The people that we had to use to cover him up inside. Jeez. Such a liability.
And you had to do it for so long, Gary. It wasn't like a 4-year stretch. You had to do it for so long.
Pick and roll defense in this game.
Oh, my goodness.
I would have to change sports.
Well, Jess, it's always a pleasure. Let's just hope next time we can have you as an actual, not non-third party here on a cell phone.
Yeah.
But we want to be kind to Gary. So Gary, get rest that arm and stay in. I'm guessing you're not doing any golfing this week. I'm guessing it's pretty cold up in your area of Wisconsin.
It's freezing up here. My gosh.
It's not good.
Oh,
Not good.
Basketball.
Let's hope we have a warmer January. So, Jess, always a pleasure, sir. We'll look forward to it next time. And like I said, we'll get you on full screen.
I appreciate it, fellas. Good job. I appreciate both of you. Thanks a lot. Good to see you, Coach.
All right, Jess. Take
All right,
care,
Gary,
buddy.
appreciate your time, folks. Be sure to
Yep.
like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right.